Thursday Arena, and I'm Samson Oloyede. Promises to be another exciting edition. Yes, the football season in terms of European football clubs is over, but you have to give credit to the Premier League and all other clubs who will be playing, starting their new season earlier than usual as a result of the World Cup taking place in the winter rather than traditionally the summer. It's time to talk about the Premier League fixtures. The 2021-2022 season just ended how many weeks ago? But hey, we have the new season just right there at our beck and call, and the new season, that's the 2022-2023 season. The fixtures are out. You have Manchester City, the defending champions. They will begin defending their their title defense rather against West Ham United, and that will be taking place at the Olympic Stadium. What a difficult match to have as your opening day match in terms of title defense. So let's see how that will pan out for Crystal Palace. That will be against Arsenal. Now the league will start on the 5th of August. It's starting a week earlier than usual, and that's because of the World Cup that will be taking place from November 18th onwards. So Crystal Palace against Arsenal will be the opening fixture of the new Premier League season, and that's on a Friday night football, you want to say. August 5th, Arsenal faithfuls will have to travel to Selhurst Park, to take on Crystal Palace, coached by one of theirs, talking about Patrick Vieira, an ex-Arsenal player and a legend at the club. But defending champions Manchester City rather would have to take on West Ham on the 6th. You have Liverpool also away from home, talking about the runner-up to last year's league title. They'll be taking on Fulham for their opening fixture, and they'll be away from home. That will be taking place at the Craven Cottage. Newcastle United will be looking to improve under Eddie Howe this season, and they'll be taking on Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest, who are making a return to the Premier League after decades out, from top flight football in England. So much to look forward to talking about the fixtures for the 2022-2023 season. It must be said that the big one we're looking forward to, Liverpool against Manchester City, will take place on the 15th of October. The 15th of October, that will be the first clash between Liverpool and Manchester City, the winners of the title as well as the runner-up. The Carabao Cup final will take place on the 26th of February, while the FA Cup final will take place on the 3rd of June. Your Europa League final will be on May 31st. Your UEFA Champions League final will take place on June the 10th, while the Europa Conference League, won by AS Roma's Jose Mourinho, will take place on the 7th of June. Again, all of these changes are simply because of the World Cup, which is taking place in November, the winter, rather than traditionally the summer as it is known. So it must be said too that there will be no games from November 13th to December 26th, and that's as a result of the FIFA World Cup, which will begin on the 18th. So you have 16 match days before the World Cup, and after the World Cup you have 22 match days. It's definitely a congested fixture when it comes to these teams, but it is what it is. Edgar Balanga, that's the name that has been on everyone's lips over the past 2 days, following his controversial attempt to bite his opponent, and the latest about him is he has been suspended by the New York Sports Athletic Commission for attempting to bite Alexis Angulo on Saturday. That was the past weekend while they were fighting. It was a 10-round bout, and though Edgar Balanga won a unanimous points victory over Angulo, the referee failed to spot that incident and didn't punish him for it. And as a result, you have the New York State Athletic Commission suspending him. Now, it must be said that the length of suspension has not been finalized. We're still awaiting an official announcement regarding the length of the suspension, but it is expected to be more than 6 months for his actions. It must be said. He's also set to face a possible fine. Yes, he's also set to be fined rather, and the 25-year-old has apologized for his actions. Now, for boxing faithfuls or lovers, this is definitely reminiscent of that infamous Mike Tyson bite on Evander Holyfield during their heavyweight clash way back in the late 90s. So it's something that is actually really condemnable. We do not want to see boxing taken back to those dark ages, and I'm sure Edgar Balanga will definitely be made a scapegoat in this regard. We're waiting for the official announcement. It should be out in a matter of days regarding the length of the suspension as well as the amount he is set to pay for fine as a result of the attempted bite on the opponent. I'm quite surprised the referee didn't see it. As you can see, the referee was, in close proximity to the action. But hey, sometimes these things happen in the split of a second, and the referee can just do little in terms of paying attention to every detail. Now, moving away from Balanga now, and still talking about boxing. Now we're focusing on amateur boxing. The president of the AIBA, which is the amateur boxing, or rather, if you want to call it the International Boxing Association, Umar Kremlev, has called for new presidential elections. Now, amateur boxing has been plagued with several concerns and controversies regarding rigged presidential elections. They've had 2 presidential elections in the last 18 months, which Umar Kremlev has won both of them. But the latest is as a result of a ruling by the Court of Arbitration for Sports that the omission of Boris van der Voort, that's the Dutch man who was trying to get into the presidency of the International Boxing Association, was wrong. It must be said that Boris van der Voort was the front runner alongside Umar Kremlev, that's the current president of the International Boxing Association, during the last elections. But van der Voort, that is on your screen right about now, was omitted from the ballot, and it was said to have infringed on the election rules, as it were. But the Court of Arbitration for Sports has ruled that the man on your screen shouldn't have been omitted from the ballot or the election as a result of minor infringements when it comes to the election rules. So the president on your screen, Umar Kremlev, has now called for new elections. It will be the 3rd election that will take place in about 20 months thereabouts for the embattled International Boxing Association. Now, the International Boxing Association, for those who do not know, are the ones in charge of Olympic boxing. Remember, Olympic boxing is amateur boxing. That's where they make use of the headgears and all of that, just to protect the boxers when it comes to boxing. This election, the new one, if it holds, will definitely determine the future of boxing when it comes to the Olympic Games. That calls that boxing should be stripped of the Olympic Games, especially the one coming up in Paris in 2024, which is relatively 2 years from now. So much has to be done in terms of reforms at the International Boxing Association to be able to gain the trust of the International Olympic Committee, that's the IOC, to ensure that boxing retain its status as one of the sports for the Olympic Games. On the 24th of June, which is about 8 days from now, you would have a meeting, a General Assembly meeting of the International Boxing Association, where a decision will be made regarding the issue of having new elections. Let's see how that pans out. It will be interesting to see how that pans out. It's time to talk about the round leather game on the show. I will definitely start with a controversial one. It's all about the financial fair play rule, and the latest is that La Liga, yes, that's the Spanish La Liga, has filed complaints against Paris Saint-Germain as well as Manchester City as a result of breaching financial fair play rules. The president of La Liga, Javier Tebas, who is on your screen right about now, filed a complaint against Manchester City in April, following the signing of Erling Haaland at the time, and complaints about breaching financial fair play rules. And he also filed a complaint against Paris Saint-Germain last week following the renewal of Kylian Mbappe's deal, a bumper 300 million euros deal over the course of 3 years. And for La Liga, the complaint is simply that the financial fair play rules have been repeatedly breached by these clubs that the La Liga president has deemed as state clubs, as they were, considering they are sponsored by various states. For Manchester City, you have to link them to Qatar or UAE, and while for PSG, you also have to look towards the Middle East in that regard. Let's see how this pans out. You expect UEFA to come up with a reaction as soon as possible regarding these complaints filed by La Liga. But it must be said that in 2020, UEFA slapped a 2-year ban on Manchester City for breaching the financial fair play rule, but that was overturned by the Court of Arbitration for Sports, which is the highest body body, legal body in sports. It's more like your Supreme Court in sports. That ban was overturned. So let's see how this one goes, talking about, UEFA and the financial fair play rule. UEFA also knows that there's a need to reform the rules to ensure a level playing field. Now let's turn our attentions to the Premier League. Yes, it's all about the Premier League fixtures, but before we talk about the Premier League fixtures, let's talk about Premier League teams. Now, Premier League teams have been notified that there are stringent guidelines in place to ensure that teams do not just unilaterally call for postponement of matches. This plagued last season, as several teams had to complain about COVID-19 infections, injuries among others, to push for postponement of various games that they deemed not favorable to them at the time of calling for the postponement. But the latest is the Premier League is now taking a tougher stance and pushing for, and how clubs push for postponement of matches. The rules are still the same, a bit of tweaks here and there. Now, if a team has 10 players, 10 outfield players, and a goalkeeper out of the match squad, they still have to go ahead to prosecute, the matches that they have to play. If they have 15 fit players as well, they still have to go ahead in terms of prosecuting the match as well. So let's see how it is. No one is praying for another, pandemic or another outbreak of a particular virus or what have you, but I'm sure all the teams will be in one accord when it comes to adhering to the new guidelines by the Premier League.